This is an unprecedented step. It's
not only for Indian judiciary, but for Indian democracy.
Their conscience has been pricking them, and that's why they have chosen to take this unprecedented step.
The Chief Justice has been abusing and misusing his administrative power as master of roster.
The Chief Justice, that certain things are not in order, therefore we should take remedial measures. Unfortunately, our efforts failed.
I think all four should be impeached. They should be set up.
You must have heard the term Friday blockbuster. Today it came from India's top court. In a historic first of its kind move, in fact, 4 senior-most judges of India's Supreme Court called a press conference and publicly raised questions against the Chief Justice of the country, Justice Deepak Mishra. Around noon today, Justice Chelameshwar, Justice Ranjan Gogoi, Justice Lokur and Justice Kurian Joseph criticized the Chief Justice and said that cases were being arbitrarily allocated to different judges in the Supreme Court.
It's an extraordinary event in the history of any nation, and more particularly this nation, and an extraordinary event in the history of this institution of judiciary. It is with no pleasure in our hearts we were compelled to take this decision to call for a press conference. For some time, the administration of the Supreme Court is not in order. There are many things which are less than desirable which have happened in the last few months. Time and again, as senior members of the court, and goes without saying that we are the senior most judges of the country also by virtue of age and our office today, senior judges, we thought we owed a responsibility to the institution, to the nation. We tried to collectively persuade the Chief Justice that certain things are not in order, therefore you should take remedial measures. Unfortunately, our efforts failed.
A little later, a letter was released to the media, the pictures of which are playing on your screen. This is what the judges had written to the Chief Justice a few months back. The letter raised issues over lack of transparency in selection of judges to hear specific cases in the top court. The Chief Justice was expected to respond to these allegations, but we've not heard from him yet. Soon after the judges' press conference, the Prime Minister's office held meetings with the Law Minister and top bureaucrats. No official statement has been released yet, but the opposition lost no time in latching on to the controversy. The Congress party did not comment on the specific allegations by the judges that were made today, but they did go on to demand a special investigation team, an SIT, to probe the death of Justice B.H. Loya. How does he come into the picture, you would ask? Justice Loya, for the uninitiated, was a special CBI judge who died while hearing the Sohrabuddin case. It's a case in which many prominent names figure, including some from the ruling party. This was one of the cases highlighted by these 4 judges who spoke today, who revolted today, as some headlines say. A petition has been filed before the Apex Court calling for an investigation into what happened in that case.
Points that have been raised by the 4 judges are extremely important. They have mentioned that there is a threat to democracy. I think it needs to be looked into. It needs to be looked into carefully. They've also made a point about Judge Loya's case. I think that is also something that needs to be investigated properly. It needs to be looked at from the highest levels of the Supreme Court.
Meanwhile, the man on your screen stirred the pot further. D. Raja, leader of the Communist Party of India, Marxist or CPIM, was trending earlier today on social media. He said that he met Justice Chelameshwar just before the press conference. Subsequently, pictures were released to prove that point.
Step taken by the 4 judges is an extraordinary step. Never before we saw such a development in our judiciary in the post-independent India. It is an extraordinary step they have taken. It shows the deep crisis in our judiciary.
Now, if you watch television news regularly, you'd know that people hold press conferences all the time. So what's the big deal about 4 judges holding it today? Why the brouhaha? Here's why. What they've done today seriously undermines the authority of the institution they represent, the Supreme Court of India. The implications of today's action will be immense. Top judges coming out and making allegations against a sitting Chief Justice, their boss, is unprecedented, and the fallout will be big. After all, judiciary has guided this country when the executive and the legislature failed to deliver. And by all accounts, people repose faith in the judiciary, in the courts of the country. It is, after all, the last resort for an ordinary Indian citizen. When everything fails, go to the court. So it could be argued that today's developments have eroded the public's faith in judiciary. And who can forget that the executive and the judiciary not long ago sparred over the appointment of judges? The court said the tried and tested method of selecting judges through a collegium was the best option. The government deferred and wanted a say in the appointments, and today's developments could reignite that old debate. What about the lower judiciary, you would ask? The Supreme Court is the guiding light for the lower courts. The Supreme Court holds them accountable. With the House divided in the lower judiciary, they will face a leadership crisis. Last but not the least, hundreds and thousands of cases pending with the courts will suffer, and this is where it hurts the most. What we should also remember is the fact that despite clear constitutional guidelines, there are limitations even to the Supreme Court's reach, and we've seen examples of that not very long ago. If you recall, only last year the court banned firecrackers in the national capital Delhi and adjoining areas. What happened? Delhi's Diwali was not without firecrackers. The roads next day were full of firecrackers left over. In 2014, the court banned bull-taming sport of Jallikattu in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu. What happened? After a legal battle, the government brought in an ordinance. The limited point we're making is that at a time when the court was trying to restore its authority, a controversy like the one today does not help. And talking about controversies, remember Justice Markandeya Katju, the former Supreme Court judge known for his freewheeling comments. He had to visit the Supreme Court after retirement. What he said and did there was also unprecedented, not in scale, in nature. The retired judge told a sitting Supreme Court judge, Justice Gogoi, who incidentally was part of the press conference today, to not issue threats to him. Justice Katju left the court with a contempt notice. In February last year, the Apex Court issued contempt notice against Justice C.S. Karnan. He was of the Calcutta High Court. Now Justice Karnan was issuing orders against sitting Supreme Court judges. What followed was next to impossible, or so we thought then. In May 2017, the retired judge C.S. Karnan was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment. Only yesterday he returned to Tamil Nadu after completing that term. So today's events will hit the image of the judiciary, not just domestically, but across the world. In fact, the global perception of India's judicial system has anyway been a matter of concern. Look at these figures. Back in 2016, the World Justice Project's Rule of Law Index put India at the 66th place among 130 countries. India performed better than its BRICS partners like China and Russia, but it ranked below South Africa and Brazil. India ranked 77th for its regulatory enforcement, 93rd for civil justice. The ranking on civil justice relies on parameters like effectiveness of enforcement, presence of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, absence of government influence and corruption. India's ranking was fairly low. But there's still some reason to cheer. India ranked 28th on open government and 35th on government constraints. Those who conducted this study said that the rule of law affects the business environment, public participation and conflict resolution of the country. Today's developments might erode India's position further. That's the point we're making. And joining us is Ashwani Kumar, former minister. Mr. Kumar, thank you very much. Good to have you on the show. What is your first reaction? What was your first reaction when you heard that 4 senior judges, some of the topmost names in the Supreme Court today, are going to hold a press conference and have spoken out against the Chief Justice of India?
Well, I was obviously saddened, disappointed and shocked at this unprecedented and exceptional act on the part of the 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court, and the fact that they were compelled to resort to the device of a press conference to put in public domain matters that otherwise have remained confined to the corridors of the Supreme Court. I think it's a very, very sad reflection on the way the administration of justice has been conducted in the Supreme Court. It has now become absolutely incumbent on Honorable the Chief Justice to dispel the apprehensions that have been caused by the letters circulated by the 4 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court. I personally believe that the institutional integrity of the highest court and its standing as the ultimate moral arbiter of the nation's constitutional order has been dented irreparably. We need to collectively restore the prestige of the Supreme Court. Well, I would like to say that it is the internal workings of the Supreme Court that have brought the matters to such a pass, and but we all have to work collectively to restore the strength of the institution.
At one point it was said that the Supreme Court and its representatives are supreme in every sense of the word, that you cannot, they're above reproach, they're above questioning. Do you believe that today's events have eroded that halo, have faded that halo? Contempt of court is a concept of history now when top judges fight openly.
No, I'm not going to comment on the visit of Mr. D. Raja to the residence of Justice Salameshwar. That is not for me to comment upon. That is his decision. As far as I'm concerned, personally speaking, it is a very sad day for me as a lawyer and as a citizen of this country, and all those who believe in the sanctity of the highest and the most sacred temple of justice will today be a saddened lot. But let us move on and try to repair the damage that has been done. And the damage has been invited from within. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And those of us who practice in the court have been hearing disquieting conversations in the corridors of the Supreme Court for the past several months. And they do not cover us with glory. And I think we all must unitedly try to salvage the reputation and prestige of this great institution of India's democratic engagement.
So you're talking about the visit of D. Raja and many political leaders, including your party colleague and former Law Minister of India, Mr. Bharadwaj, has weighed in on what this could mean for the country. But I was talking about contempt of court, sir. Is it a concept of history when the people of this country see top judges fighting and questioning their motives on why cases are being assigned to specific people? Do you believe that concepts like these do not apply anymore?
Well, I would not like to comment on what Mr. Bharadwaj said. He is entitled to his views. He has been the Law Minister of this country. And as I said, everyone interested in the independence of judiciary, everyone interested in the strength of the judicial institution must combine and come together to restore to the Supreme Court the prestige which has been dented today.